Okay, so now you have completed the lab activity, and let's talk about that data. Okay, so again, this is your actual lecture for lesson 17. Okay, so the metal element in each chemical formula appears to be responsible for the flame colors. Is that true? Look at your data. Okay, when you grouped those metals or you grouped those substances together in your analysis, do the compounds that you have under each color category, do those contain the same metal? Okay, if we did a blind test without knowing the chemical formulas, we would flame solutions and just look at the colors. Okay, then we could say, hey, solution number 1, solution number 6, and solution number 7 all appear to be a bluish greenish color. Okay, I'm going to say that they contain the same metal. Okay, we could group them and decide what metals are present in the samples by knowing what metals produce what color. So some examples that we have here: strontium will always produce a red color. Copper will produce a bluish greenish color. Sodium will produce a yellowish orangish color. Potassium, a more of a lilac color. Calcium will flame red as well. It's more of an orangish red. Lithium turns out to be a crimson color or more of a purple. Okay. Flame tests, really help us detect the presence of those certain metal atoms. So no matter what the form the copper atom is in, whether it's a solid, so as an element itself, or if it's in a compound, it's always going to produce a characteristic blue-green flame, okay? The potassium, in your activity, you see potassium nitrate, potassium chloride, potassium sulfate. They always produce a pinkish, purplish color flame. Okay, only certain elements produce colorful flames. So every substance containing the same metal will give us the same flame color. At the same time, all of the substances that are called nitrates, so if you look down through your table of the information you collected, everything that's a nitrate doesn't flame the same color, right? They don't all flame the same color. All of the substances that are called chlorides or sulfates, they don't flame the same color, okay? So that's telling us that the non-metal portion of our compound is not responsible for the flame color, okay? Elements and compounds are considered collections of atoms, and we know that all matter is made up of atoms of the elements that are listed in the periodic table. Okay, the chemical formula, like we learned in lesson 6, gives us information about the element or the compound. So it tells us, what element is present or what atoms are present in the compound. So if we think about copper 2 oxide, okay, if I have copper 2 oxide, so let me, it's not letting me pick my pen here. But if I have copper 2 oxide, that's telling me I have copper and oxygen in my compound, okay? Since that copper is present, we should assume that it's going to have a bluish greenish flame color, okay? If we just have a solid sample of copper oxide, it's black, okay? It doesn't really look like copper metal itself, okay? But those copper atoms are still in there, okay? Compounds are really just mixtures of atoms from different elements. The only way to change one atom into another is to change a nucleus through a nuclear reaction. So the number of protons in the nucleus determines the identity of an atom. Okay? Changing the numbers of protons does change the identity of the atom. However, a nuclear change requires either a radioactive nucleus or some other type of specialized conditions. Okay? The temperature of the flame in this Bunsen burner that we just did with our lab activity is not hot enough to change one type of atom into another type of atom, okay? That temperature change would have to be hundreds of degrees, the temperature of the Bunsen burner is hundreds of degrees hot, not millions of degrees that would be required to see those types of nuclear reactions, okay? So look at this picture that we have here. The illustration tells us that flame colors are associated with the movements of electrons of a sodium atom. Okay. The heat from the flame will cause electrons to move further away from the nucleus. When the electron moves back down to its original distance from the nucleus, energy is released as a colored light. Okay? It is the electrons that are affected by the heat from the flame, not the nucleus. So here we have an example of a sodium atom. So when sodium, any form of sodium, goes through a flame test, and the electrons get excited, when they jump back down, when they release their energy, we will see a yellowish, orangish flame. Okay, this is one of the hardest ones to see during a flame test, any sample that contains sodium, because sometimes people don't have their flames at the proper heat. Okay. Okay, so Bohr's model of the atom came directly from the evidence similar to what is produced in your lab. Okay, so he noted that atoms emit light of certain colors when they're heated. He came up with this theory that electrons are located in specific shells. So if you look back at this picture, those shells are basically those circles that we see outside of the nucleus. That nucleus is that one larger gray shaded area in the center. And all of those shells are where we see electrons. Okay, in that first shell, we see 2 electrons. In the second shell, we see 8 electrons. In that next shell, we only have 1. And that 1 electron jumps up to the outermost shell and then eventually falls back down. Okay. So the electrons can energetically jump up between these shells, but they can't occupy space in between the shells. When the electrons fall back to their original positions, they release energy in the form of light. Okay.